Hey there everyone, I'm Doc Schmidt. Let's talk about money. Doctors actually tend to be pretty bad with money because we don't really have any formal training with it over the course of medical school. We do obviously tend to have higher salaries, but we start to make those salaries relatively later in life because we have to go through medical school and then a residency before we start making the classic doctor salary. So what do doctors do with their money? I thought it might be fun or interesting for me to kind of go through some of my money habits and strategies to explain how I save or invest my money. It's not financial advice. Honestly, I'm still learning myself, so I certainly wouldn't recommend doing what I'm doing just because I'm doing it. I'm fully expecting to get comments telling me how I'm wasting my money or losing money. Here goes. Actually, first let me thank today's sponsor, The Daily Upside, for partnering with my channel. The Daily Upside is a free business and finance newsletter that you can use to help get an edge on the latest business and financial news. Check out the link in my bio to subscribe for free. So what are some of my saving or investing strategies? I'm a doctor in training, so I make a low enough salary to qualify for a Roth IRA. This lets you put in post-tax earnings, and then after retirement, at age 59 and a half, you can withdraw them tax-free. I always try to contribute to my wife's Roth and my Roth up to the max per year, $6,000 each. I also have a 403b through work, similar to a 401k, but this is for a nonprofit. I make sure to donate a decent percentage of my income to the 403b each paycheck. A 403b is kind of like the reverse of a Roth IRA in the sense that you put in money before tax, and then once you reach retirement age, you withdraw it, but then you have to pay taxes on it. Now, ideally, I like to donate the maximum amount to my 403b each year, but this is a lot of money. It's $20,500, so usually that's not feasible. A 403b and a Roth are both tax-advantaged accounts, so I preferentially try to contribute to those accounts. But I also have a regular investment account that I put extra income towards. This is an account that lets me invest in stocks. The 403b and Roth IRA also let you invest in stocks, but the main difference with the investment account is that it's not tax advantaged. So it's post-tax money from my paycheck that I'm putting into an investment account. And when I sell those stocks later on and take the money out, I have to pay taxes again. So it's not ideal compared to the tax advantage accounts. But an investment account allows me to access my money whenever I need it, while the 403b and Roth have penalties if you try to remove your money earlier before retirement. That's another reason I don't put absolutely everything that I have towards my tax advantage accounts, because I've got to have some money that's liquid or freely available in my accounts if I need money for a car or a house or a down payment, bigger purchases. You have to pay capital gains taxes from selling investments, of course, but there aren't penalties like withdrawing early from the other accounts. Within these accounts, I purchase stocks to enable my money to grow. I don't know a ton about the stock market, and I don't like spending the time to review individual stocks in depth, so I invest in ETFs exclusively. These are exchange-traded funds that contain a balance of lots of company stocks to enable you to diversify your investments. So if one company goes under, you won't be nearly as affected as if you had actually directly invested in that company. These ETFs usually have themes, for lack of a better word, like healthcare sector, technology sector, or the S&P 500. I decided on a ratio of how I want my portfolio balanced, like what percentage of each ETF I want, and I basically stick with that and I invest to keep it consistent each month so I don't have to waste a lot of time deciding which stocks to buy. I might make a video in the future breaking down exactly which ETFs and what percentage that I buy, but the key is that I can invest on my own without paying a financial advisor or without spending inordinate amounts of time researching individual stocks. I did research at the beginning of all this to find a good balance, and now I just spend maybe 10 to 15 minutes a month allocating a consistent amount of money accordingly. There's nothing wrong with having a financial advisor, but I think you should only worry about getting one if you really need one, not just because people say that you need one. One way you can educate yourself on financial news and updates quickly and easily is with the Daily Upside. They have graciously sponsored this video. The Daily Upside is a free business and investing newsletter that over 230,000 people subscribe to, myself included. The Daily Upside was founded by a team of former investment bankers, scholars, and journalists with the intention to provide color and clarity to help investors sift through the noise of the financial news space. Instead of pushing clickbait, financial headlines, and biased coverage that traditional outlets have gotten used to, the Daily Upside provides actionable insights and clarity on stories shaping the business world. Every weekday, they deliver a morning brief, followed by more detailed stories that are shaping the business world. The Daily Upside is about a 5-minute read, and it isn't afraid to dive into the hot topics and give real, high-level, unbiased analysis with the occasional dose of wit to keep things interesting. In addition, they have a weekend edition newsletter that goes a level deeper into niche industries, which is awesome as well. I highly recommend the Daily Upside. Click the link in my bio and join the 230,000 other people that read the Daily Upside every morning. It's free. What could be better than that? So obviously I don't invest every single bit of money that I receive into my retirement account or my investment accounts. So what do I do with the rest of it? Well, some of it I put in savings accounts. As you may have heard, many people recommend that you don't put too much of your money in savings account because it gets so little interest. But I maintain an emergency fund of money that I save in a high interest savings account. These are accounts that have a higher interest rate than a typical savings account, as you might have guessed based on the name. This allows me to have an amount of money available at all times in case of some emergency, or if I need a lot of money all at once, or I lose my job, for example. but at least that money that's sitting there is gaining a little bit more interest than it would otherwise if it was just languishing around in a typical savings account with a typical savings account interest rate. My basic savings account only has like $100 in it because I don't see much benefit of keeping money in there since it's not really going to be doing much. I also have a checking account that I keep some money in, but again, I don't want to keep too much money in that account because that gains even less interest than a non-high yield savings account. I keep money in that account mainly because that's what's linked to a lot of my automatic bill pay, like my mortgage and my electric bill and those sorts of things. In my particular case, my checking account having a certain balance will also increase the amount of cash back that I get on my credit card that's linked to that account. So I basically just keep enough in there to make sure I'm going to be able to pay off all the automatic deductions that come each month with my bills and to maintain the perk of that cash back from my credit card. Otherwise, I try not to keep any excess money in there because keeping it in my investment account will give me a lot more return for my money. Since I'm in medicine and I'm a doctor, I obviously have a lot of student loans, so I think it's important to touch on that. Right now, as you may know, due to the COVID pandemic, student loan payments are not required and no interest is accumulating for those student loan payments. Obviously, outside of the pandemic, it is required that some amount of your loans gets paid off each month, but often there's a question of if you should pay more down than you need to help pay down those student loans. And I think to some extent that's a good idea, but the thing you always have to weigh is if you could be using that money better elsewhere. For example, investing in the stock market. The S&P 500 has an estimated average return of 8 to 10%, depending on who you ask. Whereas in my particular case, the student loans that I have to pay have 5 to 6% interest. So if I pay those off, I'm avoiding that much interest, that 5 to 6%, from accumulating. But if I took that same money, that same excess money, and invested it instead, that money would in theory increase by 8 to 10% in value per year. Obviously, paying off the interest of the student loans is guaranteed, whereas the short-term gain of the stock market is anything but guaranteed, but it's something to consider based on your individual case. So currently, while there's no interest accumulating on my student loans due to the COVID pandemic, I'm not paying my student loans off at all, and I'm putting all of my excess money into the stock market. This allows me to have my money kind of work for me, so to speak. Plus, for many people in medicine, there isn't necessarily a motivation to pay extra loans depending on what your repayment plan is. For example, my monthly repayment plan for my student loans is income-based. So once I'm done with my fellowship in about a year and a half, I'm going to start making a much higher salary, and my minimum required payment for my loans is going to go up significantly. This will lead to my loans being paid off a lot quicker, whether I want to or not. So in my case right now, there's no need or there's very little motivation to pay off a little bit extra here or there, when in 18 months, I'm essentially going to be paying 8 or 9 times what I'm paying now per month when there's not a COVID pandemic. I also have mortgage and car payments to pay each month, and similarly for those, I just pay the minimum as opposed to trying to pay extra. Because right now I prefer to just invest my extra money into my investment account or put it into my retirement accounts. So that's basically it. That's a summary of what I do with my money. I don't do anything fancy right now, like invest in real estate or Bitcoin or anything like that, but we'll see if that changes once I'm making a bigger salary in about 18 months. And maybe I'll update you guys then. But for now, I'm keeping it pretty simple. Again, this isn't financial advice, it's just an example of what I'm doing with my money right now. This is all information that I've learned about and a strategy that I developed in about the past 2 years or so, honestly. Basically, since the pandemic started, that's when I started learning a lot more about finances. So if you're someone who's looking to do some of the things that I talked about here, don't feel behind necessarily, because 4 years ago or so, I wasn't doing hardly any of the things that I described in this video. There's no time like the present to start learning about finances and changing how you manage your finances. Please comment below if you have any questions. Feel free to share any experiences, whether you're a physician or not, how you spend your money or how you invest. Also, thanks to the Daily Upside for sponsoring this video. The video link is in the description to be able to subscribe to their awesome newsletter for free. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Thank you very much.